Many of you may have heard about the recent passing of legendary boxer Muhammad Ali. He died at the age of 74, and this is a very terrible tragedy to the sports world and in the news in general. I mean, this person was just such a not just a phenomenal boxer, but he was a transcendent athlete as well. When he fought, I mean, he completely dominated his opponents. I believe that he was the greatest boxer ever, or at the very least, the greatest heavyweight fighter that ever lived. Yeah, he was flamboyant. He might have even been seen as ostentatious by some people, but he backed up his talk in the ring and he fought. I mean, like, to me, at such a fast, lightning speed, he just seemed like he was somebody that was just like so far ahead of his time as far as boxing goes. And to me, he showed that you can win in speed, agility, power. I mean, he's just a very multifaceted and versatile boxer. He could beat you in virtually any fashion, and especially his speed. When I watched some clips of him, it just seemed like what stood out to me was just his quickness with his punches. And I don't know if this record still holds. I know he regained his title like 3 times, I believe it was. I know one of them was against Leon Spinks. I think another one was against Joe Frazier. And when you look at Muhammad Ali, and he was just such a dynamic figure in the sports world. He was very prolific, and there was something about him that really was also very charismatic that brought people to him. And he was just like really that face of like the 70s, or one of the main faces of the 70s in the sports world. He stirred up some controversy when he wouldn't go to Vietnam, and I think that was, he stated it was attributed to his religion. If I'm not mistaken, he was exiled for some time from boxing because of this. Now, when you see someone as dynamic as him, it's funny, it's interesting that really that did not, I mean, to some people it may have tainted his legacy a little bit, but with most it seems like that it really didn't impact him, and it just shows you what an outstanding athlete this person was. And it's kind of like if Michael Jordan gets involved with something or he's in some controversy, he seems to just kind of he comes back, and it doesn't seem to really impact really as far as people's perception of him, because I guess maybe it has something to do with the fact that when you're such a colorful athlete, that there's so many things that you do as an athlete that just can surpass one situation that might be a negative on you. Now, I think it's important to realize and respect and understand that there's no infallible athlete, and that all athletes all have flaws. We're only human beings. Now, I understand the thing with Ali and not going to Vietnam is called. There's still some people that to this day that don't like him or respect him for that. But that is what it is. What it is. Now, when I see Muhammad Ali, I look at the whole picture. I see him overall just I felt a very solid athlete and a person as well. And sadly, I mean, he had announced in 1984, I believe it was, that he was stricken with Parkinson's disease, and I know that's not obviously not an easy thing to have to deal with. And I mean, to me, we've heard about other celebrities. I think Michael J. Fox has Parkinson's disease, if I'm not mistaken. And the thing about Muhammad Ali too is that what's interesting. I mean, he went on. He fought in 3 different eras. I mean, he was in the 1960s. He was really he dominated boxing. Then, even though he was exiled, I believe in the late 60s and came back in the early 70s, I think it was 71, he fought Joe Frazier in the classic first fight, and then he beat him the next 2 times that he fought him. He lost to Frazier in the first one, and then he beat him in the second and third fights. And also, I think what adds to this as well, and his legacy, and just that he's so colorful. Many of you may remember it was in, I don't know if it was in the 60s, but I know in the 70s he had a very good report, seemed like, with a very another colorful person connected with sports as an announcer, Howard Cosell. And it seemed like they had a very good relationship and very good rapport. And you just, a lot of times, you don't see that kind of thing between an athlete and a commentator or broadcaster, what have you. And that just really added to that legacy with Ali. That was a, I mean, it's just something that we'll never see anything comparable to him like this. And I mean, I think if I'm not mistaken, with Ali and Howard Cosell, I believe they were kind of like friendly verbal sparring partners in a way, throwing their verbal jabs and verbal punches at each other. But it was all in jest, and like I said, they had a real strong compatibility, and something like that is just really, it's some that kind of experience right there transcends time. And him and he made probably the 70s probably one of the best decades ever. He helped make the 1970s, I should say, one of the best decades ever in sports. And Muhammad Ali, I mean, he would talk the talk, but he'd walk the walk, and he would do what he'd have to do when he'd get in that ring, as flamboyant and boastful as he was. And I mean, he had all kinds of funny rhymes that he would make that would be pertaining to his fights. And he just, to me, it's just somebody that's so colorful, and I just don't think we'll ever see anything like him again. And I'm sure he's going to be talked about for years to come. Years later, they're going to be writing about him. You're going to hear about him on TV when it's 5 years pass from his death, that people will be talking about the fact he died 5 years ago. And he is just one of those people that's just one of those like once in a lifetime athletes. It's comparable to Michael Jordan and someone like Babe Ruth. There are just some people out there that just go beyond their time and what they do in their sports world, and it's something that's nearly inexplicable. You can't really even explain how some of these athletes are able to do what they do. They are just so uniquely gifted, and it's not even funny. And Muhammad Ali sure fell into that category, I believe. And Muhammad Ali will be missed, but he surely will not be forgotten. Well, anyway, people, this is Edwin Learnard, and until next time, stay well.